Okay, I'll try again. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Izzy Szynski from Izzy's Crafty Bees. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from North Nottinghamshire here in the UK. And I'm here today to bring you 3 masculine card layouts. As we've got Father's Day coming up later on in June, I thought I'd just do some quick masculine cards. Actually, 1 or 2 of them may not be that quick. And I thought I'd feature masculine cards this week. Oh, I'm glad to see somebody's watching. I wasn't sure if I had actually gone live because I had an issue with it earlier. So, hello and thank you for and welcome and thank you for joining me. So, I will start as I always start with my live sessions, and I'll just tell you 3 things that have made me happy this week. Of course, the weather is glorious. I hope it is wherever you are in the world. We've got beautiful weather here in the UK. Finally, summer has begun, so that's made me happy and cheerful. We had friends over for the whole day, well, the whole afternoon on Sunday, and we were also able to visit Andrew's sister for her birthday, so that's just lovely to finally be able to see people in real life and to give a little hug as well. And the third thing that's made me happy this week is that I have discovered a pied wagtail has nested in a rubble bag in my backyard, and 4 very beautiful eggs, and I'm just hoping that she will continue to incubate and hatch them. As anybody who knows me will know, I absolutely adore birds and wildlife and nature, so that made me very happy. So what are we going to do today? Well, as I said, masculine layouts, but not your traditional motor cars, golfing or anything sort of hobby, pints of beer, that kind of thing. I'm going to use some stamp sets and dies that were already on my shelf that weren't necessarily bought with masculine cards in mind. So I'm going to show you how I've designed some masculine cards. And yes, I'm also going to be using designer series paper, which I don't do enough of. And I'm sure we're all guilty of having packs of it and stroking it and never cutting it. So I'm going to be using some designer series paper as backgrounds. So let's get on and do some crafting. Bear with me while I just flick my camera around. And I have a new camera stand, so this should be easy this week. As easy as that, indeed. So just a quick reminder, if you shop with me online, I'm just going to put my glasses on. I can see what I'm doing. So with my new camera stand, my camera is a little bit higher, so I'm not going to be keeping too many an eye on too many comments today, so I'm just going to crack on. So just a quick reminder, if you shop with me online and you don't shop with me, you're not a local customer to me, so if you're placing your orders independently, I've just set up a new host code for the rest of June. So please use this host code when prompted, and that if your order is over £20, that will entitle you to a free gift from me, which I will send in the post to you next month. Thank you for that. If your order is between well, anything up to £99, then please definitely use the host code. If your order goes over £99, then please have a word with me about joining and getting some extra benefits. You can do that as a one-off with no further obligation, but please do have a chat with me. So let's get on and let me show you the cards I'm going to share with you today. So this one very much with Father's Day in mind. This one, a masculine layout, could also be a feminine layout, but I've designed it as a masculine layout, and I've chosen a happy birthday sentiment. And then this layout using the seashells as a background, again a neutral, quite masculine layout, and I'm going to share all 3 of those with you. I'm going to start with this one as it's the simplest, but they all have techniques involved. So pull up a seat, get your packed lunch out, hope you've got a cup of tea, and we will get crafting. So I'm just going to pop those to one side. Let me just pop those actually in their relevant boxes because I've got everything prepared. So I'm going to take a seat, so I won't be able to see comments. I'll stand up and have a look from time to time just to make sure I'm still on air. But yes, I'm also going to check just how far my field of vision is. If I can leave my original card out, then I will do. Okay, let me pull up a seat comfortably. So this is a nice little square card, and I've used our basic white thick cardstock to make this. I'm going to just bring in my trimmer and show you the measurement, which is pretty simple. A4 is 21 centimetres across, so I'm actually going to take half of that and cut this piece down to 10.5 centimetres. Pop that piece to one side, and then I can score this at 10.5, and that gives me a nice 10.5 by 10.5. That looks smaller than that. I don't know what I've done. What have I done here? Oh goodness, me and numbers. I'm absolutely fabulous at numbers. Oh, that's because I've trimmed this one to 11 and then scored it. So this one isn't square. I'm a genius at numbers, I tell you. Absolute genius. Don't worry, this one's nice and perfectly square, so we'll work with the perfectly square one. I'm just so hilarious with numbers. And I'm just going to burnish that crease with my bone folder. And now I'm going to cut myself a piece of designer series paper, and I wanted to share with you this fabulous Expressions in Ink. It's a speciality. I'm just going to get the rattling over with, and I'm actually going to take it all out of the bag. A speciality designer series paper. As you can see, we've got this gold foiling across, and I'm actually going to use a piece with gold foiling, and I love these double-sided. Look how beautiful they are. So we've got foil on one side. I'm just going to whiz through them really quickly, and I'm going to find the one, I think it's this one. I'm going to use this piece, and this has the gold foiling on as well. So it's that lovely, it looks like alcohol ink, I don't know what you'd call it, pooling effect. Now here's a piece that I used on my original card, so I'm going to go ahead and use this piece because I've already cut into it. So I'll just pop that full pack to one side. So I believe, and I will just measure twice and cut once, I believe I cut this down to 10 by 10. Yes, I did. I don't even know why my eye didn't tell me that that wasn't square. I should have known. So I'm actually going to cut that 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres. So I'm going to start by cutting a strip down the middle. And I'd like a piece with, not that it really matters, but I would like a piece with both of these shades of green. So I'm actually going to choose this piece, I think, because I think my die cut piece will stand out a bit better. So now I'm going to do some, just a little bit of kind of poetic license. So I'm actually eyeballing this bit in the middle before I trim it, so I'm not measuring from the end. So I'm just going to trim that piece off, and now I'm going to turn that round so I can get this piece to measure 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and this is the piece I'm going to use as my card front. So very simple. Now if I just popped a sentiment on here, that would make a really simple but beautiful card because the designer series paper is just so gorgeous. But I'm actually going to add a little bit more detail to it than that. Now the other side of this DSP is this colour, and I'm going to keep a piece back, and I'll keep, out of the 3 that I've got left over, I'm actually going to keep this piece because it's got the least pattern on this side. I'm actually going to die cut and use this side for my embellishment. But before I do that, let's go ahead and we'll add some further embellishment. I don't know if you can see, but I've actually stamped a bit of background and heat embossed it. So I'm going to share with you which stamp set. So I'm actually just being a bit cheeky. I've used the Happy Birthday from the Artistically Inked stamp set, but I've actually used the Quiet Meadow stamp set, and I've used this image here. to give me some lettering for the background. So I've got my happy birthday ready for the sentiment, and I'm going to use Versamark and the lettering background stamp and some gold heat embossing powder. I'm just going to bring in a piece of scrap. Just bear with me, I've buried it underneath. As always, always burying a scrap paper. I've got all my tools next to me. I'm just trying to find just a little piece of scrap just to pop under there so I don't get sticky ink onto my work surface. Because I'm going to just stamp it slightly off to one side, so I'm just going to turn that round and decide which way I want my DSP to be finished. I think I will go with this colour towards the top. So I'm going to use Versamark ink and I'm going to actually stamp this a couple of times. I'm not taking too much care about whether it's perfectly straight because it's quite a random, and I'm just going to move it slightly. I'm not taking too much care either whether I've overlapped that or not, and all will become apparent in a second. So now I'll just pop my lid back on, and I'm going to just grab my gold embossing powder, and actually I've got some in the tub, and tip that on. Because I just wanted those background letters or that background script to give me an extra bit of background, and as you can see I actually didn't overlap it, but it's just giving me some extra background. I'm going to go ahead and heat that embossing powder. Let me just pop that tub out of harm's way so I don't knock that off. Now let me get my heat gun. There we go, nice and quick and simple. I'll just hang my heat gun back up. And yes, I just wanted to say that heat embossing and with a bit of extra gold, it just picks up that gold foiling. And heat embossing is something that I sometimes forget to do. It's such a nice and quick technique and really worth doing. As you can see, that heat has actually just made my DSP just curl a little bit, but it will stick down nice and flat once I get that on the card blank. I'm just going to stand and make sure my video is still working. It looks like I'm still live, so that's grand. I'm going to just crack on. It's worth checking because occasionally I have an issue with Facebook Live, and I've debated whether to hop across and just go straight to YouTube Live. Now I did have a piece of pre-cut. Now that I've just dropped it, oh no, it's here. I've pre-cut a little strip of vellum, and I've cut that to 10.5 centimetres in width to go the full width of the card, finished card, and I've cut that to 2.5 centimetres in width that way. So 10.5 long, 2.5 centimetres wide, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment on there. And I can just see a little fleck that's annoying me, but I'm going to stamp my sentiment in Stays On, and I'm going to do that right now because I want the Stays On, although it does dry fairly quickly, I do want it to dry properly. So I'm just going to use my scrap paper again just so that that shows up well. And as always, I can't get my head right over where I'm stamping, so I'm just going with a bit of a wing and a prayer. Yay, looks pretty straight. So I can happily just slide that out of the way to allow it to dry entirely. And I'm going to take my other piece of designer series paper and I'm going to die cut. So I want to share with you the artistic dies that come with the Artistically Inked bundle or sweet, depending on whether you go for the whole suite. These are absolutely incredible. So obviously fantastic for the more feminine cards. This die in particular is huge, and it cuts a wonderful big piece, a big die cut piece. Then we have some outline pieces. So if I bring back in the stamp set, we have some outline pieces that die cut some of the other pieces, to keep turning it around till I get that roughly in the right way. It doesn't actually die cut. Oh yes it does. Yes, it does die cut, exactly. And then this one's for this one, and this one's for this one, this one's for this one, and the leaves, etc. So fabulous. But the one I'm going to use just now is this huge piece, which is just gorgeous big piece of leaf. So I'm going to actually pop that through the die cutting machine. Now I'm going to fit it on, and it will just fit on that piece. So I'm going to just bring, shall I bring my die cutting machine in? Let's have a look. Let me just see if I've got enough room, because I'm using this new phone stand, camera stand for my videoing. So it is just here on the desk, and I'm used to having it suspended from the shelf. So I'm just being careful not to knock anything. So we'll just pop this through the die cutting machine really quickly. And this card's pretty much done. Oopsie. Let me just move that out of the way. We don't have any disasters. That's all the way through. Let's get that piece out. Now, one thing I will do, I'm just going to bring in my sponge mat, and I'm going to put the die cut piece straight on the sponge mat. I'm just going to get rid of those big pieces, because we end up with these little bits. And I'm going to bring in my favourite tool, the lint roller. And that just saves me having little tiny bits absolutely everywhere. You're going to get some. And I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool brush end. Now I always have my Take Your Pick tool with my putty end, and rather than unscrew it and re-screw it, and I really ought to buy a second one, I just pick up my brush end and just give my die cut pieces a brush handheld. Get some of those little pieces popped out from the die. As you can see, the vast majority of them have come out. Pretty much all of them, I think, and that's marvellous. And then we can pull out that lovely leaf die cut. It's super, this, it's so lovely. Look at that, it's gorgeous. Now I'm going to just give my lint roller a roll across that mat, and again that'll just save me having little pieces everywhere. So if you've got a lint roller and you haven't got a cat, use it in your craft room. I had my lint rollers for when we had the dog, and just wasn't using them, and then I discovered that they're a fabulous tool for in the craft room. So that's that beautiful leaf. Now let's try and assemble this card. Let's bring my original back in. And what I found easiest or most effective was to have some of the leaves behind, and I actually trimmed my long die cut down and doubled it up. So I'm going to show you how I got that effect. Some leaves behind and some leaves in front. Really simple. I'm going to stick this layer down flat, and I'm going to use my favourite multi-purpose liquid glue for this. Just because it's my favourite glue. Of course you can use whichever glue you prefer, because this is just flat down, paper layer to card base. So you could use tear and tape, you could use one of our tape rollers, the Stampin' Seal. I really love multi-purpose liquid glue. Some people just don't get on with liquid glue and find it really messy. But one thing to remember is our multi-purpose liquid glue is water soluble, so you can easily have a face cloth just with plain water on your craft desk, and that will remove any stickies. So I'm going to stick my vellum layer across, but before I do stick that down, I'm actually going to position my piece. Now you can see on my original, hopefully, I trimmed off the bottom a little bit. So I'm just going to get my positioning somewhere near where I'm happy and just remind myself. So I actually took off these top 2 leaves and just pinched them off with my fingers, and then I adhered, let me just have a look, this layer. Oh, I might have taken that one off actually. Let's take off that one. I'm just looking at this and looking at how it lays without interfering with my happy birthday. So before I stick anything down, I'm just going to see how I can actually layer it. So I'm going to actually just take that leaf off, and I'm going to pop that one underneath. So I know that that one will go underneath. And that one will go underneath, so that's super. And then I can stick these over the top, and I will stick them by just layering them underneath this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is stick this leaf assembly down first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring, now I would bring in my silicone mat, but I've got it, and you will see when I do my next project. I'm going to use my old battered silicone mat here, and I'm going to just use my liquid glue again, and I'm just going to pop a few dots on the back of this. I'm not going to use the sponge and actually stick the whole thing down. I'm just going to add a few dots of glue to this leaf. And I can bring this back in now. Now if you do find that you get sticky, you can use tweezers. I prefer just to use my fingers. And I'm probably going to just trim off that bottom. What I'm watching is this leaf is over here, but I don't want it overhanging the edge of the card. I'm going to just stick those bits down. There should be a dot somewhere, a dot of glue under each one. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to pop my sentiment the full width across, and I'm literally just going to pop some glue along the edges. That's simply all I'm going to do. So let me go ahead and do that. Here we go. Just making sure I'm still in shot. Just move that up a little bit. So a very careful thin bead of glue. You can also use our fine tip glue pen. It has a very fine tip. I just find I can't control this bottle quite as easily. I'm just so used to using this multi-purpose liquid glue. I can't quite control the nozzle on that fine tip glue just quite as easily. I find I end up with more coming out than I'd wanted. I'm just adding that tiny bit of glue to that edge and that edge, and that just adheres that down enough. And I'm going to add an extra couple of leaves to this card. I'm just going to watch what I'm doing because I seem to have my happy birthday a bit further over this side on this card, so I'm going to just maybe add them. Add them a bit higher, so that would work just there. So again, I'm going to just add a couple of dots of glue to the back. So where I've got a bit more surface area, just tiny little dots, don't need too much. And let's try and position that. How did I have them? A bit further up, so let's just stick those down like that. and that's overlapping, so we can't see that bottom of the stem. So I'm quite happy with that arrangement. I'm just going to take my snips and snip this very bottom stem away, and that just tidies that bottom up. And that is a very simple, but I hope you agree, just enough with extra embellishment. So just by adding that gold heat embossed background, it just adds a little bit more. The designer series paper really works perfectly on its own. It's just so gorgeous with that gold foiling effect. Just by using vellum for my sentiment, I just felt it added an extra dimension, or an extra element, an extra something a bit more unusual than just stamping happy birthday on white. So hopefully that's yes, and this one's square and this one isn't, so the same but different. You know my catchphrase. That's just too funny that I can't do my measurements. So let me just check that I'm still filming. Okay, I think I am. That's lovely. Oh, that's fine. Brenda's disappeared, but she's joining me on catch up, and that's absolutely fine. If you are joining me on catch up and you're watching me after work or later on, maybe next week, then thank you again for joining me, and I hope you enjoy these masculine cards. So that's card number 1 finished. I'm just going to tidy up some of these bits and bobs to one side, because I do end up with everything everywhere, and I haven't got a box just to pop these in, so I'll just have a very quick clear to one side on my other desk. Let me get rid of those inks. And then we'll bring in card number 2. Now, just pop that to one side there. Let's have a look. Card number 2. Now this card, I'm going to go with the seashell card next. I'm just going to get all my tools and bits out. I've pre-prepared some of the elements for the card, so we're not spending too much time watching me die cut, but I will be doing some stamping, so pre-mounting the stamps. So I'm going to use some Evening Evergreen ink, some Blushing Bride ink, some Old Olive ink, and some Grey Granite ink. I've got a punch to use, and let's get the stamps out. Let's have a look. And for this card, just put that to one side. For this card, we've used the Friends I Like Seashells stamp set and the matching dies. So the matching die, and I just wanted to show you that this die set comes with one big die that cuts out one big piece, and yet the stamps are actually individual, and there are also some outline dies. So the outline dies coordinate with the sand dollar. These are not shown at 100%, so I can't show you on the stamp set. The little shell, the starfish, and the 2 pieces of seaweed. But all of the other images are actually cut using this one big die. So I'm just going to show you what that cuts out. Just pop those over there, because we don't need them again. So I've actually gone ahead and cut out that one big die, and I've used our watercolour cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop that out of the watercolour cardstock and just get rid of my excess. And just pop that, pull that away, get rid of the excess and little bits, and I'll just pop out these tiny pieces as well. They pop out really easily. Not too much faffing. Just get rid of those. And what I'm going to do is actually stamp the 3 shells in the corresponding places, and I'm also going to use some of the seaweed elements that have been die cut. I don't have to fuss too much about those other little faffy bits, because I'm going to snip away the 3 shells. So the 3 shell, oh, I'm going to have to say it now, she sells seashells on the seashore. The 3 shell shapes that I want are these 3. So I'm going to be left with these 2 larger pieces. Let's just get rid of those little bits. and I shall pop my original card to one side. And the other pieces that I've already done is I've prepared my card base in Pool Party, so that's half a piece of A4 scored at 10.5. So just your regular size card blank. I've also used a piece of grey granite, and I've die cut this frame, and I've used the rectangle stitched framelets dies, and the two that I've used are these two. So I've gone ahead and cut that frame using these two dies. You can see just how many you actually get in the set of stitched rectangle frame dies. So I've already gone ahead and done that. I've also cut from the, and I'm going to just bring it in, this designer series paper is actually retiring at the end of June, and this matches it's the Sand and Sea designer series paper, so it matches the stamp set and the dies, and it's really beautiful. There are some elements on this DSP that you can cut using the dies as well. I'm just going to try and find them. I've got a feeling I might have used it. I think it's this one can be cut using the die, I think. But yeah, on the one side you get images like starfish and seashells and the sand dollars, and on the other side you get these lovely, looks like wet sand, so I'm using a piece of that. This piece is actually fabulous. It's sort of ombre, it goes from yellow to pink, and it looks like the seashore. And this one is very, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I just knocked my camera. This one goes through all the colours like watercolour. So I'll pop those to one side. But the piece I'm going to use is the piece that looks like wet sand, and I've die cut a rectangle the same size as the frame, which I'm going to use as my layer. And I've also cut another piece, and that piece is 10 centimetres by 14 centimetres. I'm going to stamp that and have that in the inside. So here's my original, which I've stamped and used on the inside. I need a scrap of white just for the sentiment, so I'm going to pop that to one side. And I'm going to go ahead and let's start stamping these seashells. So I've got this image first. Let me just show you. I'm going to use this image. I'm going to use this one and this one. And I'm also going to use this image here, and I'll show you what that does. I'm going to put my stamp set to one side. So first of all, I'm going to stamp this smaller of the conch shells, and I'm going to stamp it in grey granite onto my piece of watercolour cardstock. And I've chosen to use watercolour because it gives me a bit more body. I could use basic white thick and I would get the same kind of body, but I really wanted to use the watercolour cardstock because it's nice and thick, and it will just give me a bit more body with my stamping, I think is what I'm trying to say, fumbling about. So let's stamp these at there. And because it's a photopolymer set, you can quite easily line up your images. So this is a die cut. You would die cut first and then stamp the images on top of your die cut. And there is also the most gorgeous embossing folder that goes with this set, and that matches. So if you wanted to emboss this piece, you would line that up inside the embossing folder and run that through your machine, and you would get these pieces also embossed. I'm not going to do that today, but I wanted to show you the embossing folder because it's fantastic. So I've stamped them in grey granite. I'm now just going to add a little bit of extra colour. The other option, one of the other reasons I used watercolour cardstock was I was going to actually do some watercolour technique on the shells, but when I stamped them I really liked the level of detail. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of extra colour, and I've chosen Blushing Bride. Did I choose? Yes, I did choose Blushing Bride. And I'm going to actually stamp off and stamp on just to start with, just to see whether I've got enough pink. I don't want these to be overtly pink because this is a masculine card, but I just did feel that it needed a little bit of extra colour, and this is a really easy way of getting some extra colour. Now that shell is a little bit bigger, and I'm not going to swap my piece. I'm actually going to just angle it so that I stamp the shells and not the seaweed, because I actually want the seaweed. I'm just going to pop my scrap underneath, and I'm really quite happy that that's got a bit of darker pink on. It really doesn't bother me because I'm going to cut it out. And now I've got 3 shells with some tone and a little bit of colour without it being really overtly pink or overtly feminine. So that's my pink, that's my colour. Now I'm going to take my snips and I'm going to release the shells from the die cut. I'm actually almost going to cut a little bit extra off, so it's a little bit like fussy cutting, but without entirely fussy cutting. So I'll just release them from the die to start with, and we'll have a look at what we're left. So they're my 3 shells. I'm going to tidy them up in a tick, and I want to have some of these pieces of seaweed, so I'm going to just release those as well, and these 2 pieces down here. So we'll just release that from the die, and we'll tidy those up, and I'm going to add some beautiful green colour to those as well. And then I've still got this piece which I can stamp with that those 2 big shell images. So I'm actually going to pop these like I did with the ones from previously. I'm going to pop them in my stamp case so I've got them for later and I can stamp them and use them on another project. So what I'm going to do with these shells is I'm actually going to just trim them a little bit more carefully and just really quickly, not exactly fussy cutting. Most of the work's been done. So I've got 1 shell. I'm just going to tidy this one up a little bit. I just didn't want all of that extra around the edge showing. So we'll just trim away some of that. That's 2 shells, and the same with this one. We'll just trim a little bit. Of course you could leave it, there's nothing wrong with it. Personally I just wanted to trim off some of that extra. And with the seaweed pieces, again I'm just going to tidy up a little bit. But because they're I'm going to stick them on and the shells are going to cover the bottom, I'm not going to go too mad. Equally, I'm not going to worry too much about these little bits that are still in. They'll pop out quite easily with my scissors. They might be covered up. I'm going to actually separate these 2 pieces. Let's have a look. Snip that piece away, and I'll just tidy this piece up as well. What that looks like. There we go. Let's get rid of some of these little scraps. Tidy our desk. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add some green colour to my seaweed, and what I'm going to do to get that seaweed colour, I'm going to bring in, this is like a non-stick mat. You can use your silicone mat if you have one. This is like a non-stick craft mat, and I'm going to have a piece of kitchen paper as well, because I'm going to use quite a bit of water and 2 shades of green ink. So I'm going to use a brush, one of our aqua brushes. I'm going to use some water in a jar that's next to me, and I'm going to just add some water because this is watercolour paper. I'm just going to add some water to that paper to start with. It kind of primes it ready to accept some ink. So I've added some water there. In this bottle I've got alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to add some Old Olive ink, and I'm going to use my blending brush. I don't want that to be very watery sitting on top, but I just want my card to be damp. So I'm just blotting off any excess water because I don't want to get water onto my brush, you know, to saturate my brush. So I'm now just going to, I'm not even going to blend it, I'm just going to bash it on. You could use a sponge if you wanted to. What I'm going for is a kind of mottled effect. So that's my Old Olive, and I'm now going to add a bit of Evening Evergreen as well. And this Evening Evergreen has a little bit of a sort of bluey shade. Now I've got ink underneath my fingernails, which is never good because that's going to go onto my project. So just bear with me while I just try and get that out. Right, here we go. I'm just going to clean off. I've got a microfiber cloth somewhere. I'm just going to clean off the Old Olive from my brush. And you can wash your blending brushes just with plain water, or you can add a bit of detergent, but plain water is fine. And I'm just going to add a bit of this colour here and there. So now I've got some mottled effect. Hopefully if I just pop that on there you'll be able to see that a bit clearer. And what I'm going to do next, if I just turn my kitchen paper over you'll be able to see that again, is I'm going to give them a good old squirt. I'm going to move my ink pad out of the way so I don't squirt alcohol into my ink pad, and I'm going to give them a really good saturation. And now you can see the ink sort of moving around and merging. And I will just move my water bottle. I'm going to come in with my heat tool now and just give that a blast directly from above, and it will move around the ink and dry that off. That's grand. Now I don't know if you noticed while I was doing that, I wasn't wafting my heat tool. I was holding it directly. I was watching where the pools of ink were actually moving to, and I think on this one you can perhaps see I've got some of those lovely puddles and lines and that really lovely alcohol ink kind of look to these pieces. It's a technique that I demonstrated a couple of weeks ago with the meadow flowers as well. So it's just a nice technique. I really like it. I like the effect. It's not for everyone. Not everybody likes a mottled effect. Some people like a really nice smooth effect. So if that's you, then I would be die cutting these pieces actually out of coloured cardstock. So choose some Old Olive cardstock. We have a fabulous range of cardstock in all 50 colours. So if you want a nice smooth and prefer that plain, smooth, single coloured look, then by all means just die cut your pieces from that one colour of cardstock. Now I'm going to do some extra stamping, and I'm going to stamp some extra seaweed onto the background piece, but first I'm actually going to assemble the frame and the background piece in the frame so I know exactly where I need to stamp those additional pieces. If I bring in my original you'll be able to see I've stamped a little bit extra on the background. So I'm going to stick my frame to my background wet sand look designer series paper. Let's just flip that over, and it just sticks straight on top because it's the same size. If I flip that over, you'll see what I mean. Look at my inky fingers. If you ain't got inky fingers, you're not trying hard enough. So that's just the same size, you can see. And now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to use Old Olive. Keep my pieces. I've got a dangly bit on my top and it keeps knocking everything over. So I'm going to use Old Olive, and I'm going to actually, first of all, as always, I try and sort of position my elements where they might be going. Let's have a look. In fact, I might end up just using 2 pieces. I think that's what I did with this one. I ended up just using 2 pieces because I wanted most of my elements to be in this corner and my sentiment to be here. I might go with that one as well. So I want to stamp sort of about here and about here. So I'm going to ink my stamp, and let's have a look. I want to go quite tall. Go quite tall there, and I want it to come out here a little bit. And now I can fill in that area with this other piece of seaweed and give myself a nice bit of background. And even if some of that gets covered up, it doesn't really matter at the moment. That's fine. I think I'm happy with that. To one side. And I'm going to do some extra stamping on that piece for inside, and I'm going to go ahead and just assemble that front of my card now. We'll just pop that piece to one side and we'll stamp that in a tick. So first off, I'm going to burnish this crease on my card blank. It just helps it to lay a bit flatter and stop it pinging up. There's nothing worse if you're trying to assemble a card and your card's pinging everywhere. So I'm going to stick that down flat. I'm going to stick that entire layer just straight down flat, and again I will use my liquid glue for that. Speedy, strong, and I love Tombow glue. I've also got a bit of slide. If I just pop it down in the wrong place, I can slide it. Just depending on how warm it is. It's quite warm in here today, so it does tend to dry a bit quicker. Now with my shells, what I did, just to give them a bit of extra dimension with my bone folder, I just gave them a curl. Nothing more technical than that, it's just giving them a curl, and I'm going to use dimensionals to pop them up. Just a bit of a curl. Of course, if your card's going through the post, you can choose whether to do this or whether to stick your elements flat. But if you're giving your card by hand, even though it's going to go in an envelope, it's still nice to get some dimension. So I'm going to stick this piece down first, I think, and we'll have that maybe about there. So do you know what? I think I might just stamp one more seaweed just there in that gap, very carefully. And so again, I'm going to use my liquid glue, and I'm just going to pop a couple of dots, and I've got some on my desk, so I'm just going to find my, what do I do with my kitchen paper? There it is. Let's get rid of that. I'm sticking this piece fairly flat. This piece I'm going to just stick the bottom bit. I'm going to not have any glue behind this piece at all. And if I just manoeuvre it a little bit with my thumb and finger, I'm going to snip that top bit off. I'm not keen on this shape here, so I'm going to actually just do a bit of gardening. Let's prune that top bit off. I think that looks a little bit better. So I'm just going to pop some glue on the bottom. Again, just 1 or 2 dots. And let's stick that across that corner. Now, by having this poking outside of the frame, it makes it more interesting to the eye, rather than everything actually restricted within the frame. Now, we need to make a decision. Shall we use this piece or not use this piece? I'm not too keen on the fact that we're really die cut there, so again, I might just do some gardening, tidy that bit up. It just doesn't look an organic shape. That looks a little bit better. And we might just pop that piece in as well. Let's, as we've gone to all the trouble to colour it, include it. That's super. I'll just put my lid back on my glue because, like I say, it's quite warm in here. And I'm just going to reach for some dimensionals, and we will start with this shell here in the background. And for that one, I just need 1 dimensional foam pad. That will be quite sufficient. And we'll pop that one about there. And we'll place this one just overlapping it to this corner, and we'll give this one a treat, and we'll have a couple of foam pads on this one. And remember, we've curled it, so if I went with foam pads on the sides, it would force it to be flattened again. So I'm putting my foam pads in the centre, and again I'm covering the corner of that frame just to make it more interesting to the eye. And I'm going to leave this one because I'm going to stamp and punch my sentiment and stick my sentiment down in that corner. So I'm just going to take my piece of scrap basic white, and my sentiment I've picked out of the stamp set. Let's have a look at the choice. I've chosen Love You to the Beach and Back, and I'm trying to decide whether to send this card to my dad for Father's Day or whether to send the ice cream one, because my dad lives in Morecambe, which is quite near the beach, of course. So yeah, we've got Happy Birthday to My Beautiful Friend. We've got I'm So Happy I Found You. That would, that would go really well with Love You to the Beach and Back. Wishing You the Very Best. Nice neutral sentiment, just wishing you the very best. You are unique and completely amazing. Well, aren't we all? A lovely, just for you, a thank you. Friends are like seashells, you collect them along the way. Now I will point out this Happy Birthday to My Beautiful Friend. You could use this Happy Birthday without the to My Beautiful Friend for a masculine card. Of course, you may have beautiful masculine friends, but you may just want to stamp Happy Birthday. Of course, I've demonstrated that before. If you just want to stamp some of the words, then you use your marker pen and not the ink pad. So you could still use that sentiment just for the Happy Birthday. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment in grey granite. It's a nice soft colour, and I'm going to stamp it just here. And then I'm going to use this label punch. I can never remember the name of it. This label punch, it's fabulous. And I'm going to line it up so that my sentiment is to the top. Give it a punch. And this punch also punches a little hole and a slot. It's quite handy if you want to use that to form a ribbon slot or a ribbon hole, for example, once you've punched your label. So let me just pop that out of the way. And I'm now just going to tidy up the very bottom of this, and for that I'm going to bring back in my trimmer, and I'm just going to tidy the bottom. I could have used my big snips, my big scissors, and I probably would have done had I not been on camera, but just to show you, probably best practice and a better finish. Now I'm going to stick that sentiment within the frame, not outside of the frame, just so I can actually see the edge of that frame. I'm just going to see whether I can manage to get any of that seaweed overlapping. I don't think I can. I might be able to. I like to cluster things together so that things aren't too spaced apart with too much gapping in between. I quite like to actually have things touching. I feel that it just brings it all together when you're looking at designing cards. Sometimes the reason a card doesn't always work is simply how you've placed things, and there might be just too much of a gap between your elements. I'm happy with that, and I'm just going to pop this last little shell on, and I'm going to use a mini dimensional for this one. I just feel a big dimensional will be too much. Oops. Just pop that there. Again, if I just make sure that that shell's overlapping that shell and the sentiment, and it just pulls it all together. Nothing is sort of standing out on its own. Now I'm just going to decorate the inside piece. So I've cut this piece 10 centimetres by 14 centimetres, and I'm going to just stamp some images along the bottom. I'm going to bring in my piece of scrap so I can use my shell. Let's have a look at the original and see what we did there. So I used a couple of shells and some seaweed. So I'll stamp my shells first, and I'll go back to my grey granite. Of these shells like so, and we'll have a bit more seaweed in Old Olive. Such nice images, they're really crisp and clear, but at the same time they're like, oh, I don't know, is it a distinctive set? Let me just double check. It might well be a distinctive set. No, it's a two-step stamp, but it's not a distinctive set. They kind of have that drawing watercolory feel to them, but yet when they're stamped they're really crisp and lovely. I really like that. So let's pop this piece in the middle, and we will be done with another card. Now my third and final card has a bit more technique to it, and I'm also going to bring out my Stamparatus, which I don't demonstrate very often, probably not often enough. I do love this designer series paper, this sort of wet sand look. It's really lovely. So like I say, this is retiring at the end of June, and so our end of catalogue closeout sale starts this evening at 7 p.m. Although there's no reduction in price from this designer series, this pack of designer series paper, it is your last chance to grab it. So if you've already purchased the Friends Are Like Seashells, the stamp set and the dies and the embossing folder, and you want to make sure you have enough designer series paper to go with that, then now really is your last chance to be getting it this month. If you haven't got it and you do love the stamp set and the dies and the embossing folder, they are carried on and they're in the new annual catalogue, so no rush to go out and grab those. But like I say, the designer series paper that matches is going at the end of the month, so please don't miss out on that. Now I'm just going to leave those two cards there a second while I just tidy up these wet stamps. Just pop them in this box and I can clean them afterwards. Oh, I have got one last thing, and I don't know where I've put it. Oh, it's here. Just to show you, I didn't add any I'm running out of surface space. You wouldn't believe I've got a desk to this side and a surface to this side, and I've still run out of surface space. So this, being a masculine card, I haven't added any bling, any sequins or anything like that. I just didn't feel it'd be appropriate. But what I have made, this is something I did last night. I've taken my silicone mat. This is the Stampin' Up silicone mat, and I've used some of the fine tip glue from the fine tip glue pen, and I've just done some blobs and left it to dry overnight. So now I can actually add some of those blobs as accents or bling, for want of another word. So I'm going to actually, because I thought they looked a bit like droplets of water, so I'm actually going to add 2 or 3 to each card, maybe 3, and I'll use the fine tip glue just to stick them on, and we'll see what they look like. So the fine tip glue has a very fine tip, and it also comes with a needle point in the lid which goes back down the hollow nib to stop it from drying up. So let's go and pop. And of course you can do this direct to your card and leave it to dry overnight, or you can use the fine tip glue to actually stick these. Let's have a look and see how this works. So if I just pop them off my silicone mat, see how they come off, and then add them. Because I've left them to dry, they're a little bit bigger. Oh, what I might need is my take your pick tool. I'm just going to have a twist of new putty. Let's pop that over. That's an easier way of doing it. And that just, they just pop off the silicone mat because it's non-stick. Wants to stick to the putty more than the glue. So, let's have a look. Just a little bit of something extra. I'm hoping the camera's focusing on that. Let's pop 3 more on this one and then we can see. Again, let's have 1, 2, and I don't know. Don't think about it. Let's do 3. Let's have a little triangle up there. And we'll just pop them off the mat. Ooh. That's it. Put them on the glue. So all I did, I'll show you how much I put on. So I used my silicone mat and I used my fine tip glue, and I just made a little blob. And you can make as big a blob or smaller blob as you want, and then you just leave that blob to dry overnight. Now I'm just going to very quickly, got some excess glue on my nib, I'm just going to quickly remove that and then make sure I pop the needle down the tip so the tip doesn't dry out. You can do the same, make your own accents with our shimmery crystal effects and a silicone mat. So you can squeeze a blob as big or as little onto your silicone mat. And now if I leave those to dry overnight, I'll have blobs with a bit of shimmer in and blobs that are clear. So that's just something else that you can do. And I believe that you can, with the clear, I believe you can add ink, our re-inker ink to them as well. I've not tried that, so that's something maybe worth trying. So now I've got some clear accents on my masculine card, not too feminine, and it just ties in with that watery seaside theme. So hopefully you've enjoyed that little tip as well. I'm going to pop those cards just out of the way. I'm going to pop my silicone mat right out of the way because that's got wet glue on. And we'll just have a look at our third and final card for the day. Now, where's my big box of stuff? First of all, let's bring in the card. So this is a different size card and another great theme. Not using anything that's specifically a masculine set. So let me just pop everything I need to hand. I'm going to be using some cinnamon cider cardstock and some Whisper White or basic white cardstock, and I'm also going to be using some designer series paper, which I'm going to share with you in a sec. I've got a punch, got a sentiment, template, and I've got some ink. I've got Whisper White pigment ink, Early Espresso, Soft Seafoam and Cinnamon Cider inks, my colour palette, and I've got my ice cream punch, and I've got some stamps mounted on blocks, but I've also got, bear with me, I'm just trying to clear some space. I've also got my Stamparatus, and I've got some white embossing powder, so I'm going to use my Stamparatus to stamp my ice creams. So let's get cracking and let me talk you through the card. Put my inks to one side. Oh, I also need some soft, was it soft sea? Yes, some soft seafoam cardstock for my base. Bear with me, I forgot to get that. It's just here. Label Me Fancy Punch. I'm just glancing. Thank you, Michelle, for that. So let me bring that back in. What have I done with it? Well, I would if I knew what I'd done with it. I've put it to one side. I've cleared it. Ah, here we are. So this punch I used on the last card. Label Me Fancy Punch. Thank you, Michelle. Just one of those things. So I'm going to take a full sheet of, an A4 sheet of soft sea foam. Now I wanted my ice creams, and I'm glad Michelle's on watching, because Michelle is our lovely ice cream lady with her gorgeous shop in Sutton-on-Sea. Please visit when you are in Sutton-on-Sea, East Yorkshire. No, is it East Yorkshire or is it Lancashire? Lancashire, get me, Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire. Please visit Michelle's beautiful Love Sweets shop and ice cream emporium. I'm hoping I've got that right, Michelle, and you're still online watching me. My dad's favourite ice cream is mint choc chip, so that's why I've gone with this colour scheme. So I'm going to take my piece of A4, and I'm going to extend my leg on my trimmer. I'm just going to try and bring that into shot, but I'm going to just struggle because it's going to be off the desk, so bear with me. Oh, hi Lorna, you're joining on your lunch break. Now I'm going to take my A4 sheet landscape, and I'm going to trim that to, let me get this right, I always get this one wrong. Yes, I'm going to trim that to 21 centimetres. This piece is spare, keep it for later. I'll pop that with my cardstock. And now I'm going to just move that across, and I'm going to score, moving my trimming blade, at, I can put my leg back in now. It's always good when you can put your leg back in. I'm going to score at 10.5. And that will give me my DL card. That's right, that's super. I think that's what you call it, your DL skinny long card. And I'm going to cut myself a piece of, while I've got my trimmer out, I'm going to cut myself my piece of designer series paper and my piece of cinnamon cider. I'm just going to bring in the designer series paper pack that I'm going to be using, and this is the ice cream, let's have a look, Ice Cream Corner designer series paper. And here's another pack of DSP that's going to be retiring at the end of June. So if you've already bought the ice cream stamp set and the matching punch, then now is the time to get the matching designer series paper to go with it. I've used quite a lot of this DSP already, and I'm just thinking about, I haven't got any left of that same colour that's big enough. Oh no, I've used it all. I'm going to have to choose a different one for underneath because I've used it all. I have used quite a lot from this set. I've used the lollies. Oh, hang on. Oh no, I've got sprinkles. I'm wondering whether to go with sprinkles or stripes. Let's have a look. I might have to go with stripes, unless I can piece some of this together. Let's see if we can do something a bit different. Let me think on my feet pretty quickly. I don't know whether I can do thinking today. It's too warm. Whether I could piece it together. I probably could, but I can't do thinking today. So I'm going to go with a completely different colour. So let's think on our feet, and let's do ice cream with sprinkles on instead of mint choc chip. We can make that work quite easily. So my dad's going to get this card because his favourite colour, his favourite ice cream is mint choc chip. So the recipient of this card will get sprinkles, and I'm going to change out the colour of the ice cream. But I'll keep my card base as I've just made it. That's not a problem. So let's measure. I'm waffling on now. Let's measure our piece. So I think I cut it 19.5 by 9.5. I usually do write all of this down, and I usually prepare it as well. So 19.5 by 9.5. So I want 9.5 this way. Let's pop that, and I want that 19.5. So I've got to get my leg out again. So now I've got my base piece. Now, if I was being a frugal crafter, what I would say is actually do 2 little strips, and then you save that middle piece. I'm actually using up my DSP because I know it's retiring at the end of this month, so I'm actually going for it and I'm going to use it up. You may choose not to do that. So let's actually have a look. I was going to use, oh, I think I'll still go with cinnamon cider, why not? Let's go with cinnamon cider. And I need a piece of cinnamon cider to go across the card, and I need that to be 19.5 by 6.5 this time. So let's go 6.5 by 19.5. So I've got my elements gathered together. Got my base card. I'm not sure I even like that colour scheme together, but I'm gonna continue regardless. Or should I change that base card? Let me just go and change that base card out, because I'm not sure that that lovely DSP actually stands out enough for me. So bear with me, I'll be right back. Let's go with something nice and let me have a look. I used to be indecisive and now I'm not sure. Let me go with I'll see when I get there. I'm coming back. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. I'm coming. I just think it needs something a bit brighter, but something that doesn't clash with this. So I'm going Bermuda Bay. Let's just pop that on there. Does that work or does that not work? I'm not even sure I like that cinnamon cider on top now. Oh my word. I'm just going to crack on. I'm going to crack on, but I'm going to have to get rid of the mint. It's not working. The soft sea foam just needs something a bit stronger. Stick with me, guys. Stick with me. So my base was 21 centimetres, and I'm going to score that at 10.5. There you go. Didn't waste too much time, did I? And we'll make the ice cream a different flavour. We'll go vanilla. Let's have a look. Oh, I reckon this could work. Yeah, we'll make it work. That's super. Right, okay. Now, phew. Crisis averted. Oh, that'll serve me right for not preparing my DSP earlier today when I was getting ready. Now, I'm going to also hold my breath and demonstrate my stamparatus. I don't use my stamparatus enough. I have to say, my style of stamping is stick it on a block and stamp it. However, this punch, the pieces are arranged in a particular way. Now, I could just stamp 3 ice cream blobs and 3 wafer cones and just punch them. But what I did was I punched a piece of white, or any colour actually, just punch a piece to give myself a template. So punched a piece, got a template, and then I lined it up using my stamparatus, and I need to make sure that this is the right way around, using 2, this is what I don't like, all of these bits and pieces, using 2 of the plates. So I've got 1 plate on the top and 1 plate to the side. Let's move my punch out of the way, and I'm in danger of knocking my stand. And then I placed my template down and I placed my individual stamp pieces through the actual template and then put the plate down to pick it up. So I knew that my cone was in the right place and my ice cream blob was in the right place. So now I know that when I stamp them onto my piece of white, I'm going to get my ice cream and my cones in exactly the right place to punch them. So when it comes to punching, it is actually quicker. Something in my brain, because I'm just a bit of a slap happy, let's just stamp it kind of person, says I'm not sure that setting it all up is quicker, but hey, you know, I'm a demonstrator. I need to demonstrate to you all. It's too funny. Oh, goodness. So I hope you know what I mean. Yeah, what I can never work out is, well, how do I move my cardstock around? I'm coming across as being a complete amateur now. So if I do that one there and that one there, how do I move it up? I'm going to have to move it around different ways. So, what the heck. Okay, I think what might be easier altogether is if I had 3 pieces of cardstock. So I'm just going to make my life easier, rather than worrying about where to move it around. I need 3 pieces of cardstock to stamp these ice creams on. And I'll keep that one, and then I'll just do myself another one like this. There we go. So now I've got 3 pieces, and it'd be easier just to pop them in. So I'm going to pop my first one in. I'm just going to make sure that that's going to be there, and that's going to be there, so that needs to go over a bit. How not to demonstrate a stamparatus, but it will all, honestly, it's brilliant. It's fab. It's fantastic. It's the best tool ever. If I've not convinced you now, I never will. Right, I'm going to start with my vanilla ice cream. And I'm going to stamp my vanilla ice cream using So Saffron, and I know that So Saffron makes a really great vanilla because I've used it previously. Oh, the other thing I ought to say is that underneath my grid sheet, I've actually got my Stamparatus foam mat, because I'm using photopolymer stamps, so I need that foam mat. I'm now looking for my cinnamon cider for the ice cream cone, and what I also need to do is have my piece of scrap, because I want to stamp off, stamp on. So I'm going to stamp off onto the scrap and on to my good card. And now I've got my 1 ice cream ready to punch. Yay! Whoop whoop. Ice cream number 2. Let's see if I can get this piece of white in the right place. Faffy magnets. Yeah, that'll stamp on it. Yeah. These magnets are just so strong. Ice cream, cone, scrap. Got to think about everything that you're doing. Stamp off. stamp on. Ice cream number 2. It'll all be worth it, I promise. Piece number 3. Let's do the cone first. I don't even think I've inked that. There we go. That's the other thing that I end up doing, is getting ink all over my plate. Stamp off. Stamp on. And ice cream. Oh, right, fancy an ice cream now. I'm pretty sure I said that last time I was stamping with this stamp set. I really am. And I'm sure that Michelle was watching then as well. Now this is the beauty of the Stamparator. See, that bit didn't quite stamp because I had my magnet too close. So I can go back in and know it's in exactly the same place. That's the beauty of the Stamparators, and it's still not doing it because my pesky magnet is still in the way. So move pesky magnet completely. Now I look like I've got Cornish vanilla, and these are paler. Oh, so that could quite annoy me. So I might be able to put that back in. I wonder if I can put that back in and stamp it again. What do you reckon? Probably not get it in the right place. Let's just leave it for now. Probably not get it in the right place. So when I take my Stamparatus away, what I do is I can close one leaf, but if I try and close the other leaf with it in, it just buckles. So I always take it out and lay it that way. With the hinge off, and it lays flat. You've got to remember that you've got a wet stamp on the top, so pop a piece of scrap paper. A number of times I've put something down on top of it and it's got all inky. So we'll just cover our ink pads, and I'm going to pop that to one side somewhere out of the way. Now I know that I can punch my ice creams, but before I do so, I want to actually stamp the waffle design on the cones. So I've got a stamp to do that, and I've got my cinnamon cider, and that's the reason why I stamped off, stamped on, was so that I could stamp full strength on top, and it would be a nice defined waffle. I do love those waffle cones. Oh, I love them. They're so nice. And I think I'm going to stamp the sprinkles. I'd got the chocolate blobs out of the stamp set, and in the stamp set we have sprinkles, we have chocolate blobs, and we also have this piece, and I think I might actually do some flakes. So let's get the sprinkles, let's put the chocolate dots back in, and let's have the sprinkles out. And I think we can't have multicoloured because I'd be here all day colouring them in with my pen. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reach for, bear in mind this is masculine card, I think I'm just going to reach for maybe real red, and we'll just go for, didn't want anything pink, I'll just go for some sprinkles. There we go. Put that away. Now we can use the matching punch, and you'll be able to see that that should be in exactly the right place to be able to punch two images at the same time, because we took our time to line them up using the Stamparatus. So now I love the Stamparatus. All is forgiven. And I would forgive you for also being a little bit, you know, do I want this piece of kit? Do I not want this piece of kit? Because it takes a little bit of time just to get used to. And what I do love Stamparatus for is when I'm stamping multiple images or doing lots of cards the same. And I find it really quick and easy to do that. That's great. That's that. So now I've got my lovely 3 ice creams. Now, shall we do some flakes? Let me just bring back a piece of white. Now, this little image, I didn't know what this piece was, so let me just get a little block. And I'm pretty sure that you can make a flake. It looks like a lolly stick, and it looks like wood grain for a lolly stick, but I'm pretty sure that you can actually make a flake using it. So if I get that and we go for, how about soft suede? Let's try a bit of soft suede. And we go stamp off, stamp on, and then stamp over the top. Does that look like a chocolate flake? And stamp off, stamp on. Just going to double check that my camera's still working, and I don't know how much battery I've got either. I'm just going to have a look, because this. Ooh. Oh, I'm looking at my mum's comments. So I'm going to just snip these, fussy cut these little flakes, and then I'm going to see whether they actually do look like chocolate flakes. I'm going to cut one at an angle so it looks like I've stuck it in. I think that looks like a flake. Happy with that. I'm just going to try and work quickly because I'm aware that this card actually does take a little bit of time. I've just got a little bit of die cutting to do, but not too much. So I've now got 3 little flakes as well. So I've got all my elements for my ice creams, and we'll just pop all the rest in the bin. So I'm also going to just stamp the background a little bit using, let me have a look. I used the chocolate blobs before, so I could use the sprinkles as well. But we'll see. I'll do that last thing. So I can actually assemble this part of the card right now, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to just grab my glue, and glue my designer series paper down nice and centrally. And I'm going to glue my middle piece across. And we pretty much just have the sentiment to do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use this piece for the sentiment. I've used tone on this original card, but I think I'm going to go with this piece just to be a bit different. Let's be same but different. So the sentiment I've picked is today is great because it's all about you, the great person you are, the great things that you do. And you can see that's all one sentiment, and I've actually chopped it down. So for my dad's card, I'm going to put today is great because it's all about you, and then inside I've used the rest of the sentiment. So I just wanted to share with you that just because a sentiment comes in a particular way doesn't mean to say that you have to use it necessarily in that way. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment in white craft ink, which I've just put down somewhere over here. So I'm actually going to use white craft ink and then heat emboss it in white embossing powder. And of course you can use just your white ink, on a dark coloured card, but I find that just by adding some extra white embossing powder, it just makes it stand out that little bit more, gives it that bolder, just nice crisper, bolder white look. So I'm going to do that. You could also use, if you don't have the white craft ink, you could just use Versamark ink, just a sticky ink, no problem. I'm just going to heat set that embossing powder now. Goodness, using a heat gun on a day like today. I'm melting. So now I'm going to actually just trim down that sentiment. I'm going to roughly trim it to start with, and then I'm going to, I actually used my big scissors on my original card, but it depends on how confident you are with your big scissors, or whether you want to use your trimmer. So we can go ahead and bring the trimmer back, and let's see about lining that up. So I'm just going to look about, I'm going to watch these letters here, and I'm just looking through the ruler and I'm holding it steady here. That gives me a nice straight edge. Now I'm going to, I will trim it with my scissors lengthways, and I am actually going to use my scissors to divide the words because I'm just actually more confident with my big long scissors. Now a tip is to look at where your scissors are going, not where they are currently. So today is great because it's all about you. I want those bits on the front, and then I want this piece inside, and I might just trim off the bottom if I can get that in my trimmer nice and straight and steady. So I can use my guidelines. Ooh. And I'm going to press down and hope that doesn't move if you press down, and I'm going to use that piece inside. So let's get rid of these little scrappy bits and move my trimmer back out of the way again. And we can start to have a look at doing a bit more assembly. I want to die cut my letters Dad, and I've changed my colour. Now I'd pre-prepared a piece that I've just lost somewhere here. I've pre-prepared a piece of cinnamon cider with a piece of our foam adhesive sheet on the back, so I'm just going to do the same. So I keep forgetting about my foam adhesive sheets. They come in a packet. They look like one single sheet of dimensional, so the sheets are the same size as a dimensional size. And I'm going to use my Playful Alphabet dies to spell out the word Dad. And I'm going to just look that I can easily get Dad across this piece, and I actually only need a piece about that long. So I'm just going to snip. I'm not going to use more than I actually need to, and it's surprising just how far a piece goes. So now I'm going to just peel off one adhesive side and stick that to my cardstock. I'm going to cut down my cardstock so I know what size it is when I place my dies on it. And I'm going to turn it over and put my dies on it and run that through the machine. So I'll just bring the machine across. Let me move all my little bits and bobs. I could use my little machine, but my plates are not ready. And obviously I'm going to have to put this through twice because I've only got one D in the alphabet. This alphabet's great, it does come with several letters, several versions of, several copies of some letters. Some letters are duplicated, that's the right phrase to use. For example, there are 2 A's, but there are not 2 D's. I'm just going to lift, I'm just lifting off the letters, but I'm leaving the actual pieces intact. Just going to put my A back carefully because I don't want to lose it. And I'll put my second D and whiz that through. And the great thing about this is that, did I just knock my camera again? Oh, do you know what I like? Let me get you straight. I apologise, I hope that didn't hurt. It is, let me just tell you that, Lorna, it is Bermuda Bay, you're absolutely right. It's lovely. I love Bermuda Bay and Coastal Cabana. So now I've got my letters, all my letters there. I'm going to just make sure I put my alphabet letters back because they have a tendency to fall on the floor. And they are self-adhesive, so I can pop them out ready to use. So let's go ahead. Oh, I need to just do myself a little thing on the background for speed. I'm actually going to, I was going to use, oh, can I fit it on there? Can I fit Dad on there? No, I can't. That's why. I was going to just punch it out of this. Oh my word, I'm rushing. I am rushing. I'm aware I'm rushing just now because I'm mindful that my battery might well run out. I'm actually going to extend it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to extend this. I'm measuring this punch, the width across, and I believe that it's, in fact, I have it on that other card. I'm going to measure it exactly. 2.8 centimetres. So I'm going to cut myself a piece of white, 2.8 centimetres. And now I'm going to put that piece through my punch from the top side. So instead of feeding it in this way and punching it like that, I'm actually going to feed it in from the top. And then I can punch each end. So I've got one end, and now I can actually determine how long I need that, and I need it to be, so I'm using my other card, offering that up. If I just mark it with a pencil, I can now feed that in from the top, and I can make myself a longer label. Just straighten that up a tad. So I've used the same punch. Now I'd used a different punch for that. I'd used the this punch to actually do the original, but I just thought that I would show you how to lengthen a punch. Right, now I can stick my dad on. Well, I can stick my letters dad on there. Can't stick my dad on, you know what I mean. Okie doke. So let's bring in my card. And let me take a seat, and I'm not rushing too much. Okay, let's stick my letters, my lovely, I didn't use them, I didn't use my foam pads for this one, I just stuck my letters flat. So now I've got these lovely foam letters, self-adhesive. Oh, and I've just done the classic error. When you're spelling out a word, it's going to stick to me. When you're spelling out a word, start with from the middle and work your way out, because then you'll be sure to fit it in. If you start at one end, the temptation is always to start at one end. Chances are you might run out of space. And I'm doing this by eye, I've not measured that, and I'm going to use my pokey tool just to get that middle piece out. I should have poked that out before I put it in, but hey. I've done this before, and it's usually been okay. Just to prove me wrong because I'm on camera, it's been a monkey. There you go. Yeah, so if you are spelling out a word, useful to go from the middle outwards. And I'm so glad I remembered about those sticky foam sheets. Completely forgot about them. The last time I used them, I think I was using the gold leafing on top of them, and I just forgot that I had them. But that looks so good. It looks really good. So I'm actually going to pop my sentiments on first and then finish off with my ice creams. Just feel that it works well that way. And as always, I never like anything in the middle. That's just me. If you like things in the middle, then go for it. It's just me. I like things off to one side. In my mind, it just makes it a little bit more interesting to the eye. But of course, we're all different and we all have differences of opinion. So please make your card as you would like it. Now I can't decide which colour I like best. And I quite like that different colour on the background. It just makes that sentiment pop a little bit more. And I'm going to be using the ice creams as embellishments, almost. So I'm going to stick my first one down flat, the one in the background. I'm going to stick that down flat, and then the other two are popped up on dimensionals. So let's get that one in. And again, just more interesting to the eye if something is popping outside of the background. So this ice cream cone. Oh, I might just pull that down a little bit. You see, that's the benefit of Tombow. I just had a little bit of wiggle room there. I can just slide that down a little bit more. Happy with that. And let me grab some dimensionals, which again I've just put out of the way. And here we go. Oh, I think we can get away with just one on there. Yeah. Oh, I'm liking this ice cream flavour. Definitely need a trip to Michelle's shop. Promised my sister-in-law actually to take her out for the day, Susan. So I think a trip to Sutton-on-Sea would be just the trick for her. Let's pop these. Ooh, fiddly flakes. Oh yes, look at them. They work, don't they? Flake and sprinkles. It's rather nice. And this one can be popped up on a dimensional as well. I'm putting 2 dimensionals on the back of this one. And our last little flake. Pop that one out at that angle. I think just cutting it off at that angle makes it look like it's been stuck in. Now the last thing I've got to do is to finish off by putting the rest of that sentiment in the inside of the card. So I'm happy with that. I think that that just demonstrates that although that was a fabulous sentiment all on its own in one, just by snipping it out and snipping it into 2 bits, we can make it work for that style and that design of card, that shape of card. It just works with the space that we've got available to us. So I'm just going to tidy my desk and just lay out my cards again. Let's see. The ones that I've made today are these. That one, because it's definitely square. Let's just see, do they all fit in the screen? No, let's come down a little bit. There we are, we've got a nice shot of all the different cards. I've just tidied my desk and I'm just going to come back with a couple of last messages before I say goodbye. Before I do that, the one thing I will just share with you, and I've just buried it again because I'm really good at that, burying things underneath. Completely lost. So much stuff on my desk. Here it is. So today we launched our brand new website for kits. So if previously you've looked or even had kits from our annual catalogue or even our mini catalogues, you will notice a lack of them in this new annual catalogue. There is a page that talks about kits, and that's this one, Creativity Made Easy Kits by Stampin' Up, and you will notice that there's a new website, stampinup.uk/kits. And the reason that Stampin' Up, or we have migrated all of our kit offering to a separate web space is so that kits can be offered throughout the year at any time and changed. So there's much more offering. If a kit sells out entirely, it's not the end of the world. Another kit can be brought in its place, which I personally think is just fantastic. I have experienced disappointment from customers in the past when they've wanted to order a kit. I've also experienced, and they've been so popular that they've sold out, I've also experienced that disappointment myself as a demonstrator when I've wanted to run an event using all the same kit and they've been popular and sold out. So from today, stampinup.uk/kits, you will still be able to shop with me. You will still enter, if you've shopped with me before, you'll enter your login details and it will tell you that you are shopping with Izzy Shashinsky, and there will be a link to the rest of the store as well. So just to look at the kits, you can go to stampinup.uk/kits, or you can go to Stampin' Up, Izzy's Crafty Bees at .stampinup.net, and you will still be able to click on the link for kits. What I absolutely love about these kits is their price. They are absolutely fantastic. I'm going to just spin you around now because I just wanted to show you in the catalogue. So let me just spin you around and I can speak to you personally. Hello, here I am. So, yeah, what I love about the kits is that they are... I'm so low down. Hello. Hi. Oh, you've had nothing, you've not a laugh today. Yeah, so the kits are either £18 or they're £11.25. Bear with, I'm just going to try and lower you down a bit. There you go. There you go. So they're either £18 or £11.25, which I just think is fantastic. They're aimed fairly and squarely at your beginner crafter because the kits are all inclusive, you've got everything in there. However, even us avid crafters do love a kit from time to time. I think they're portable, they're wonderful if you're going away on holiday. You can pop one in your suitcase, in your overnight bag. You can gift them to friends, even friends who've never stamped before or crafted before, because some of them include stamps and some of them actually don't include stamps. So they are what I would call lick and stick. So even your beginner can just assemble some cards, some little gift packages, etc. Include instructions as well, very basic instructions, pictorial instructions. They're really easy to follow. They're just fabulous. They're great for get-togethers. So have a look. That website goes live from today. The other thing I wanted to just tell you about, I've mentioned that the sale starts at 7 p.m. this evening, so do familiarise yourself with the items that have been reduced. If you didn't see my quick live video. It has been saved on my Facebook page. On Sunday I jumped on and went through the mini catalogue and just showed you exactly what had been reduced and by how much. So go back to visit that. Alternatively, if you want a list of all the items to go through, then I will email you a list. Just drop me a message with your email address. Happy to do that. For me, it was easier just to flick through the catalogue, but that's entirely your choice. You might want to print out a list and read it on the train or whatever on your deck chair. The other last thing is just a bit of fun. Have you joined in with hashtag simple stamping before? Every month we have a hashtag simple stamping, and we have a new theme every month. So if you are on social media, if you're on Facebook and you post photos of your crafting, you're happy to post photos of your crafting. If you want to share them on my Facebook group, the Crafty Beehive, or with me at Izzy's Crafty Bees, then please do so. But every month we have a new theme. So this month in June, the theme is just because. So it could be a card that says just a note, hello, just because, not necessarily an event. And the items that you are to use are stamps, ink and a punch. So feature a punch. And the clue is in the title, simple stamping, not elaborate, not lots of layers, not lots of techniques. So single layer with your punch, very nice, simple stamping. So if you are making any creations, cards, note cards, that you believe fall into those parameters, have a bit of fun and share it on social media using the hashtag simple stamping with a G on the end. Okay, that's everything I needed to tell you today. So thank you once again, whether you've joined me live in your lunch break or whether you've joined me afterwards on catch up, then I appreciate it. Thanks ever so much. Please do leave comments. I do read them all. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a like, give me a heart. If you're watching me on YouTube, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up and drop your comments below as well. I do read them, I do get back to people. So yeah, thanks ever so much for joining me. Lots of love for now. Stay safe, keep stamping and have fun. Bye everyone.